Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police yesterday brought together victims, civil society organizations and community groups at a summit aimed at finding long-term solutions to gang-related violence. Joining us now to reflect on that summit is Cape Flats Safety Forum Chairperson Abie. Good evening to you and thank you for your time. So yesterday's gathering was billed as a solutions-based summit that we were told brought together all these different people, victims of gang-related violence and survivors, civil society organizations, community-based organizations, and individuals who work on a daily basis to combat gang violence. So just your reflections, to what extent do you believe it lived up to that billing?
First, good evening to you and your viewers. As the Cape Flats Safety Forum, myself was not there, but we were represented by delegates. As the Cape Flats Safety Forum, we've always persistently saying that, one, we either need a commission of inquiry into gang violence or a probe needs to be set up. However, the Parliament Police Portfolio Committee then deemed it fit to call all civil society and the state together. And yesterday was one of those. We firmly hold the view that resolutions that would be taken from that particular committee would be implemented. And obviously, you know, it's early days to call to say that they would be, it's going to be successful. So obviously, we'll be able to go out there and measure, look at the resolutions that were tabled, and then implement those resolutions and come back to the drawing board on subject matter.
So in framing the rationale for the summit yesterday, the committee chairperson, Ian Cameron, saying that gang-related violence and, gang-related crime and violence has, in his words, quote-unquote, far surpassed crisis levels and far-reaching solutions are not only necessary but urgent, end quote. Is it your sense that part of the confluence of conditions that have brought us to this point of crisis have their solutions in either more legislation or lawmaking or executive accountability, which is the province of lawmakers, the lawmakers that convened the gathering yesterday? So in other words, do we need more laws or do we need stricter executive oversight so that the executive improves the efficiencies of the agencies that are under their control? Is that part of the solution?
One of the solutions from our side, we believe that, yes, we need the legislative framework to possibly look at to be adjusted. Secondly, the executive authority, yes, although we have Operation Prosper, we have not seen the positive result from Operation Prosper in terms of the South African Defence Force being deployed. And I think basically what also happened yesterday is that, it was the highest level within the country, which is called Parliament, where communities, in particular civil society, could go there and level their frustration in terms of what we've always been saying as the Cape Flats Safety Forum, that the Cape Flats is under siege. And I think that in itself, one want to commend the Portfolio Committee to move swiftly into that direction, to see, yes, we have a crisis at hand. And I think one of the issues that people have also raised is what we've been raising at one stage or the other. We need to start looking at declaring a state of disaster. Yes, there's a difference between a state of emergency and a state of disaster. So within the state of disaster, you start unlocking quite a number of avenues, specifically in terms of funding, specifically looking at in terms of the act that all spheres of government work together. One of the issues that also came out that I can recall, I was following it, is to say that there's this disjuncted approach between departments. For an example, people were complaining about social development. That is basically what we've been saying as the Cape Flats Safety Forum. That is, and in the absence of the correct word, disabled have not been. And when we start addressing the issues of gang violence, we're able to address the root causes.
Yeah, in fact, you take me to my next point. The summit heard from victims and survivors of gang-related violence and crime, and the theme that seemed to be forthcoming from that is something that, one can characterize as a gang ecosystem that seemed to be coming to the fore quite a lot in those voices. So such aspects as territorial control, the illicit drug trade, access to illegal firearms, even recruitment of children as young as 8, and such phenomena as extortion and police corruption also being flagged. It's a complex problem, clearly. So how do you eat so big an elephant, and how do you ensure that all of society responds, that you sort of touched on a moment ago?
I think it's important that once we start, what happened yesterday is what I've been saying now for the past couple of months, is that now we're starting to see the whole of government and the whole of society approach. And the only way to deal with these problems or the social-economic issues that our communities are confronted, that are driving forces towards gangsterism, towards people, specifically gangsterism, is that we need to have a whole of society approach. We need to have a whole of government approach, an intergovernmental approach where all governments, all spheres of government, whether it's province, national and local, needs to have one common agenda, pulling all the relevant departments within the 3 spheres, having one common objective. On the other side, we have civil society, your NGOs, your FBOs, your CBOs, and whoever within civil society pull together, have a common understanding, have a common strategy, and start dealing with it. And I think what I take from the Parliament session yesterday is the closing remarks from the Lieutenant General Makonazi, where he started unpacking that, yes, and that is what issues that we've raised, is the issue around a person, and we're not soft on crime as the Cape Flat Safety Forum, a person get arrested, for example, what we call a small piece of daga, as an example, gets incarcerated up to 6 months. A drug dealer gets arrested, alleged drug dealer gets arrested, next day is out. You know, and I think the general have started to unpack that. Once we start dealing with this, we need to look deeper into the criminal justice system as well.
All right, let's leave it there for this evening. Thank you for that, those inputs. That's Abie Isaacs there, who is from the Cape Flats Safety Forum, where he is chairperson of that forum.